Day 357 of Earth observation. Research log, Arden first-class sociobiologist. Classification, restricted. Humans call it doom scrolling. The act of continuously scrolling through negative content despite the adverse psychological effects. An irrational behavior I've observed countless times, yet somehow find myself replicating at 3:47 Earth hours. The irony isn't lost on me. My quarters are dark except for the glow of the terminal. The observation equipment hums, pulling countless exabytes of Earth's digital communication through our quantum taps. A virtual tsunami of information that would overwhelm any single researcher, which is why we have the filters. The filters my superiors trust implicitly, the filters I've begun to question. Computer, continue presenting human social media patterns unfiltered. My screen fills with a chaotic stream of images, text, and video fragments. Humans call these posts. The neural interface translates the content instantly, though many cultural references remain flagged as context unknown. A message appears from user Storm Watcher 22. Anyone else's internet down in Northridge. Can't get through to my mom's nursing home. 7 responses in the thread, each from people in varying states of concern or offering help. Someone suggested checking a website called Down Detector. Another offers to drive by the nursing home, complete strangers coordinating assistance. I make a note in my private research journal, not the official one that syncs to the research vessel's main database. This small helping behavior between unrelated humans doesn't fit the Oversight Committee's classification of internet communication as primarily harmful to social cohesion. It's the 17th such contradiction I've noted this week alone. A notification pulses at the corner of my screen. It's from my Earth identity, Piper Chen, IT security specialist from Toronto, active on 6 professional forums and 3 hobby groups. A perfectly constructed digital persona maintained for anthropological observation. Someone named Quinn Taylor has sent me a direct message on the technology forum. Hey Piper, saw your post about packet analysis. I'm seeing the same weird traffic patterns at our hospital network. Think we should alert others. This looks bigger than just random noise. I hesitate. Direct engagement isn't forbidden in my research protocols, but it's discouraged, especially when it could lead to extended interaction. The proper response would be a brief, non-committal reply that closes the conversation. Instead, I find myself opening the conversation thread. Something about these traffic patterns had caught my attention 2 days ago, unusual data movements that didn't match typical human internet behavior. As I review Quinn's attached data logs, my skin tingles with recognition. These aren't random anomalies. This is a pattern of intrusion so subtle that most human security systems wouldn't flag it. But I'm not human, and I've spent nearly an Earth year studying their networks. I type back, this isn't random. It's coordinated. Run comparison on ports 443, 8080 and check your DNS resolver traffic. Someone's preparing for something big. Quinn responds almost immediately, holy shit, you're right. Just found identical patterns on our backup systems. Who are these people? Not sure yet, I write back, even as my mind races through possibilities. But they're patient and sophisticated. What I don't tell Quinn is that I recognize certain signatures in this attack. They resemble techniques developed by the Cathay, a species from the Outer Rim known for their information warfare capabilities. But the Cathay shouldn't have any interest in Earth, unless they've also been watching. Unless they've seen what I've begun to see, that human networks, for all their chaos and inefficiency, have created something unique in the galaxy. My official mission brief described Earth's internet as a primitive information exchange and a cautionary example of unregulated communication technology. But the more I observe, the more I suspect we've fundamentally misunderstood what humans have built. I shouldn't get involved. I'm here to observe, not interfere. And yet, Quinn, I think you've stumbled onto something major. This could affect critical infrastructure beyond your hospital. We need to document everything and alert the proper channels. I'm breaking protocol, but as I watch Quinn's response appear on my screen, thank God someone else sees it. I was beginning to think I was imagining things. I realize I've already made my choice. What began as routine observation has become something else entirely, and I have no idea where it will lead. The Earth has completed 3 rotations since my initial contact with Quinn Taylor. In that time, we've established that what he discovered is indeed a sophisticated intrusion into multiple human digital infrastructure systems. Hospitals, power distribution networks, and transportation control systems across what humans call North America. I've maintained my cover as Piper Chen, but in doing so, I've had to engage more deeply with human communication patterns than my research protocols strictly permit. Quinn has added me to what humans call a group chat, a real-time communication channel with 7 other information security specialists from various organizations. They speak quickly, use abbreviations I must constantly research, and occasionally employ humor that my neural interface flags as context unclear. But they're also brilliant in their own way, adaptable, creative in approaches that would never occur to researchers from my homeworld. "Piper, you there?" Quinn's message appears in our private chat channel. I adjust my communication terminal to better capture his text. "Yes. Analyzing the new packet data from Denver. Take a break. You've been at this for like 20 hours straight." "Has it been that long?" I check my chronometer and realize Quinn is correct. I've been so absorbed in tracking the intrusion patterns that I've neglected my regular observation duties. "I'm fine," I reply. "Different time zone." A convenient lie that humans readily accept when communicating online. "Whatever you say, robot woman." There's an emoji attached, a small picture of a mechanical face. My neural interface suggests this is teasing humor rather than actual suspicion about my identity. Very funny. "Find anything in the hospital backup servers." "Yeah, and it's not good. Somebody's been mapping the entire network architecture for what looks like months. Super patient, super thorough." I examine the data Quinn has shared. The intruders have indeed been methodical, working slowly enough to avoid triggering standard security alerts. It confirms my suspicion about external involvement. This level of precision isn't typical of human attackers, who tend to move more opportunistically. "Quinn, what happens if someone wanted to take these systems offline simultaneously?" There's a pause before his response. "Worst case, in winter, people die. Hospitals on backup power, traffic accidents at disabled intersections, heating systems failing in sub-zero temps." My skin prickles with an unfamiliar sensation. My species doesn't experience what humans call goosebumps, but I've developed an analogous physiological response during my time observing Earth. "We need to warn people," I type. "With what proof?" "Some weird traffic patterns and a hunch. Nobody's going to trigger national emergency protocols on that." He's right, of course. Human bureaucracies require substantial evidence before taking action, another inefficiency my people have noted in their assessment of Earth societies. But in this case, the delay could be catastrophic. I make a decision that will irrevocably alter my mission parameters. What if we could predict where they'll strike first and catch them in the act? That would be proof enough. Sure, but how? We've been playing catch-up since we spotted them. I hesitate for 7.2 seconds, an eternity in digital communication. What I'm considering would violate at least 3 protocols. It would involve sharing analytical techniques that, while not explicitly beyond current human capability, would certainly raise questions about Piper Chen and her background. But the alternative is to observe passively as a potential attack unfolds, one that now seems likely to be orchestrated by an off-world entity violating the non-interference directives that bind my own research mission. "I've been developing a predictive model," I write. "Based on the patterns we've seen so far, I think I can anticipate their next moves. This isn't entirely false. I have indeed been analyzing the patterns. I simply won't mention that I'm using computational methods that Earth won't develop for another 70 years. Or that my understanding of the attackers comes from having studied similar techniques used by the Katha in 3 other planetary systems. Seriously, that would be incredible, game-changing. I'll need access to more data points. Can you get the others to share their full network logs, raw data, not just the anomalies they've flagged? They're going to ask questions. Tell them I have experience with similar attacks in other contexts. Again, not technically untrue. There's another pause before Quinn's response. "They trust me. I'll tell them to trust you too. Don't make me regret it, Piper." The weight of that trust settles uncomfortably. Quinn believes he's communicating with a human security analyst, not an alien researcher violating her own species' protocols. For the first time, I question whether my actions, however well-intentioned, are ethical by either of our species' standards. You won't regret it, I promise, even as I wonder if I will. Day 361 of Earth observation. Research log, Arden first-class sociobiologist. Classification. Eyes only personal notes. I've slept 4.7 hours in the past Earth week. My quarters have become a chaotic array of digital displays tracking the incoming data from Quinn and his colleagues. I should be documenting human cultural adaptations to digital technology. Instead, I'm hunting for evidence of Cathay digital infiltration while maintaining the identity of Piper Chen. The deception weighs on me. Not just the violation of my research protocols, but the growing connection with these humans, especially Quinn. They communicate with a directness my people would find uncomfortable, sharing personal details alongside technical information. I've learned that Quinn has a sister with a chronic medical condition who relies on the hospital systems we're trying to protect. That Ravi on our team postponed his wedding to help address this threat. That Lynn's parents emigrated during a political upheaval and instilled in her a deep-seated need to protect democratic institutions, including their digital infrastructure. These aren't just information exchanges. They're stories. Context, the kind my species tends to filter out as irrelevant emotional data. But I'm beginning to understand that for humans, this context isn't superfluous. It's fundamental to how they process information and make decisions. The human internet isn't just a communication technology, it's an extension of their social structure. Chaotic and contradictory, yes, but also adaptable and resilient precisely because of those qualities. My neural interface pings, Quinn is messaging on our private channel again. Your prediction model is scary good. We just caught another intrusion attempt exactly where you said it would happen. I allow myself a moment of professional satisfaction. The pattern-matching algorithms I've developed have correctly identified 3 potential attack vectors in the past 48 hours, giving Quinn's team time to harden their defenses. Did you isolate the code signature? I ask. Yeah. It's unlike anything I've seen before. Almost elegant, like it was designed by mathematicians, not hackers. If he only knew how accurate that assessment is. The Cathay approach information systems as mathematical puzzles rather than technological challenges. It gives their attacks a distinctive signature that human analysts would find unusual but not impossible. Send me everything you've captured, I write. And Quinn, be careful what you put in official reports. If these really are state-level actors, they might be monitoring internal communications. You think someone's watching us watch them. It's what I would do. The moment the words appear on screen, I realize my mistake. Piper Chen, IT security specialist, wouldn't think in terms of counterintelligence operations. I've let my guard down. Quinn's response comes quickly. Interesting. Where exactly did you say you worked before? My heart rate increases, a physiological response I've developed during my time studying humans. I need to be more careful. Consulting for various financial institutions. NDA prevents specifics, sorry. A plausible cover that explains both expertise and secrecy. Still, I've made an error that could compromise my observation mission if repeated. Convenient, Quinn replies, but adds a winking emoji that the neural interface suggests indicates he's not seriously suspicious. I redirect the conversation. The pattern suggests they're building toward something. The intrusions are accelerating. Yeah, I've noticed that too. Whatever they're planning, I think it's happening soon. He's right. The Cathay rarely spend more than a local solar cycle on preparation before executing their information warfare strategies. Based on the patterns I've observed, we have perhaps 48 Earth hours before they launch their primary attack. Quinn, I think we need to alert federal authorities. This is beyond what our group can handle alone. Already tried. Filed reports with 3 different agencies. Got automated responses promising to review our concerns. This tracks with my observations of human bureaucratic structures. Slow to respond, especially to threats that don't fit established patterns. By the time they process the information and decide to act, it will be too late. Then we need a different approach, I write. If we can't go through official channels, we go around them. What are you suggesting? I pause, considering the implications. What I'm about to propose goes far beyond my role as an observer. It would constitute direct interference in human affairs. But if I'm right about the Cathay involvement, then this is already an interference scenario, just one orchestrated by a species with far less benevolent research protocols than my own. We take this public, provide enough technical evidence to warn the people who maintain these systems, even if their superiors won't listen. That's risky for our careers, for credibility if we're wrong, and if we're right but do nothing. There's a long pause before his response. People die, maybe a lot of people. Exactly. Okay, Piper, I'm in, but we need something concrete. Something undeniable that even non-technical people can understand is a serious threat. I think I can provide that. Give me 12 hours. I close the communication channel and turn to my primary research terminal. What I'm about to do breaks every protocol in my mission parameters. I will be using advanced analytical techniques to process Earth data, then deliberately sharing the results with humans. But I keep thinking about Quinn's sister, dependent on hospital systems for her treatment, about Ravi's postponed wedding, about Lynn's parents who sought safety in a new society, about all the human connections that exist within and because of their chaotic, beautiful network. My people believe we observe without affecting outcomes, but observation itself is a form of participation. By choosing what to study and how to classify it, we shape our understanding of other species. I've observed enough to know I can no longer pretend to be neutral. 12 hours later, I've compiled what humans would consider irrefutable evidence. Using computational techniques that push the boundaries of what Piper Chen should be capable of, I've mapped the full extent of the Cathay infiltration across North American digital infrastructure. The pattern is unmistakable: systematic penetration of power grids, hospital networks, transportation systems, and emergency response coordination channels, all positioned for simultaneous disruption during an approaching severe weather system that will bring record-low temperatures to the region. The timing is strategic. Attack when systems are already stressed, when physical conditions will amplify the impact of technical failures. It's a methodology I've studied in Cathay approaches to 3 other developing technological civilizations. But why Earth? Why now? The Cathay aren't officially part of the observation initiative. They shouldn't even be aware of Earth's location in the galaxy. Unless a disturbing possibility forms in my mind. What if the Cathay obtained this information from our own research database? What if there's been a breach in the observation initiative's security protocols? I don't have time to fully explore this theory. The predicted attack window begins in 36 hours. I need to share what I've discovered with Quinn and his team. I open our secure communication channel and upload my analysis, carefully edited to remove any analytical approaches beyond current human capabilities. Quinn, review this immediately. I've confirmed systematic infiltration across multiple critical systems. Attack window opens during the approaching winter storm. His response comes quickly. Where did you get this? How did you compile all this data? I have contacts at other organizations who shared their logs privately. Does it matter? Look at the pattern. There's a pause of 47 seconds before he replies. I see it. This is bigger than I imagined. Who could coordinate something on this scale? That's less important than stopping it. We need to distribute targeted warnings to the technical teams at each of these facilities. They'll want to know our sources. Tell them the truth. A group of security specialists identified a pattern and compiled evidence from multiple systems. The data speaks for itself. And if they don't listen, I hesitate. The next step would be even more direct interference. But I've already crossed the line from observer to participant. Then we need to be ready to intervene directly if the attacks begin. Can your team develop countermeasures for the most critical systems? With this roadmap, yes. We need to distribute specialized patches to the most vulnerable nodes. Start preparing them now. I'll work on a distribution method that can reach critical infrastructure managers directly. What I don't tell Quinn is that I'll be using communication channels identified through my research, the informal networks that human technical specialists have built outside official hierarchies, the back channels they use when bureaucracy fails them. It's these unofficial networks that first drew my attention during my observation mission. The way humans root around institutional obstacles, finding direct person-to-person solutions when official systems prove too slow or rigid. My species sees this as inefficient, even chaotic, but I've come to recognize it as an adaptive strength, one that might save countless lives in the coming hours. Piper, Quinn writes, whoever you really are, whatever your actual background. Thank you, this isn't about credit or careers anymore. This is about protecting people. The message strikes an unexpected emotional chord. Quinn suspects I haven't been entirely truthful about my identity, yet he's chosen to trust the information I've provided because he can verify its technical merit independently. It's a very human approach, pragmatic, flexible, willing to work with uncertainty when the stakes demand action. Don't thank me yet, I respond. We have a lot of work to do in the next 36 hours. As I begin mapping out the unofficial communication channels we'll need to reach key technical personnel throughout the affected region, I realize I've fundamentally changed my relationship with my research subject. I am no longer merely documenting human adaptive behaviors in digital networks, I am actively participating in them. And despite everything I was taught about maintaining objective distance, it feels right. Day 362 of Earth observation. Research log, Arden first-class sociobiologist. Classification, eyes-only personal notes. The winter storm has arrived ahead of schedule, bringing with it temperatures lower than Earth meteorologists predicted. According to human news sources, it's the most severe weather event in the region in 50 years. Perfect conditions for the Cathay attack. I've slept approximately 2.3 hours in the past day. My observation quarters are now effectively a command center, with displays monitoring both the official emergency channels and the unofficial communication networks where Quinn's team is distributing warnings and countermeasures. The response has been chaotic by my people's standards. Some facility managers immediately implemented the security patches, others demanded multiple verifications, some dismissed the warnings entirely. Very human in its inconsistency, but also, I'm learning, human in its redundancy. When formal channels fail, informal ones activate. When official responses lag, unofficial ones accelerate. My neural interface pings Quinn again. First attacks detected, exactly where you predicted, power grid fluctuations in 4 cities. My analysis was correct. The Cathay have begun their operation, starting with subtle disruptions that could be mistaken for storm-related issues. How many facilities implemented the countermeasures? I ask. Not enough. Maybe 60%, others still waiting for official authorization. I feel a surge of frustration, an emotion I've observed in humans but rarely experienced myself until this mission. The evidence was clear, the threat real, yet institutional inertia prevents timely response. We need to move to direct intervention, I write. Your team needs to access the vulnerable systems remotely and implement protections whether they've been authorized or not. There's a pause before Quinn's response. That's illegal, computer fraud statutes, federal prison time. And if critical hospital systems fail during this storm, if heating systems shut down when it's negative 20 degrees. Another pause, longer this time. I can almost feel him weighing professional obligations against moral imperatives. You're right, consequences don't matter if people die because we followed rules instead of protecting them. I'll coordinate from my end. Direct you to the most critical systems first. Piper, are we the good guys or the bad guys right now, breaking into these systems without permission? It's a question that resonates unexpectedly. My mission was observation only, not intervention. By my own civilization standards, I've violated my primary directive. But standing aside while the Cathay attack would be a different kind of violation. I think sometimes the boundaries aren't as clear as we'd like them to be, I reply. But trying to prevent harm has to count for something. I hope you're right, because we're about to burn every professional bridge we have. I direct Quinn and his team to the most critical vulnerabilities first. Hospital life support systems, emergency service coordination networks, power distribution nodes for residential heating. They work methodically, bypassing security systems to implement protective measures against the Cathay attack signatures. As they work, I monitor the attack progression. The Cathay approach is elegant in its malevolence, cascading failures designed to overwhelm emergency response capabilities. A power substation fails, increasing load on adjacent systems. A hospital backup generator mysteriously malfunctions. Traffic management systems begin routing emergency vehicles along congested paths. But where Quinn's team has implemented countermeasures, the attacks are being blocked. Systems remain functional, if strained. This digital battlefield is invisible to most humans in the affected regions. They experience only occasional flickering lights, brief internet outages, minor inconveniences during a major storm. They don't know they're caught between two non-human intelligences fighting for control of their infrastructure. One seeking to demonstrate their vulnerability, the other trying to protect them without revealing itself. My neural interface pings with an incoming priority signal, not from Quinn, but from my research vessel. Director Sorin, my superior on this observation mission. Specialist Arden, explain yourself. Our monitoring systems indicate you've been directly manipulating Earth information systems for the past 27 hours. I feel a cold sensation that has nothing to do with the Earth storm raging outside my observation post. I knew this communication would come eventually, but had hoped to complete the intervention before having to justify it. Director, I've identified an external intervention by Cathai agents in Earth systems. They are attempting to cause widespread infrastructure failure during a severe weather event. My actions are defensive. The Cathai, impossible. They have no authorization for Earth observation. Nevertheless, they are here. I've confirmed their digital signatures in multiple systems. You've exceeded your authority, Specialist. Observation only, those are the protocols. With respect, Director, if the Cathai are violating non-intervention protocols, then the situation already involves outside interference. I'm preventing harm. There's a pause in the communication, Director Sorin consulting with others, perhaps, or simply processing my insubordination. You will cease all interventions immediately and prepare for extraction. Your research mission is terminated. Extraction, the end of my time on Earth, the end of my connection to Quinn and his team, the end of my chance to understand what I've only begun to glimpse about human adaptive networks. But more importantly, extraction now would leave Earth vulnerable. Quinn's team is making progress, but they haven't secured all critical systems yet. If I withdraw support now, the Cathay attack may still succeed in its most devastating aspects. Director, I request 12 additional hours to document the Cathay intrusion patterns before extraction. For security purposes, if they've breached our research firewalls to locate Earth, we need to understand how. Another pause. I've offered a reason that appeals to our own security interests rather than Earth's protection. It's a calculated approach. 6 hours, not 1 minute more, and no further direct system manipulation. Understood, Director. The communication ends, and I immediately turn back to my terminal. 6 hours isn't enough to complete all the necessary countermeasures, but it's better than immediate extraction. I message Quinn, time constraints have changed. We have approximately 6 hours to secure the most critical systems. What? Why? I can't tell him the truth that an alien observation directorate has ordered me to stop helping Earth, but I need him to understand the urgency. Security concerns on my end, can't explain further. We need to prioritize ruthlessly. Okay, team is asking who we save if we can't protect everyone. It's a brutally pragmatic question, and one my people would approach through cold calculation, population density, resource criticality, long-term impact assessments. But I've been observing humans long enough to understand there's another dimension to their decision-making. Hospitals first, then residential heating systems in the most vulnerable communities, elderly, children, economically disadvantaged areas. That tracks with what we were thinking. Hospitals are making good progress, moving to heat systems next. I redirect my analytical resources to identifying the most vulnerable residential areas based on infrastructure age, population demographics, and storm severity mapping. Then I overlay the Cathay attack pattern predictions. The visualization reveals concentrated targeting of lower-income areas with aging infrastructure. Whether by design or because these systems are more vulnerable, the effect would be the same. Communities with fewer resources would suffer disproportionate impact. Just as I'm about to share this analysis with Quinn, my neural interface pings with multiple alerts. The Cathay attack is accelerating, hitting systems faster than we can secure them. Quinn, attack pattern changing. They know we're countering them. They're adapting strategy. We see it. They're hitting everything at once now instead of the staged approach. This is unexpected. The Cathai typically maintain methodical progress even when detected. This rapid acceleration suggests something else, desperation perhaps, or a timeline I don't understand. I dig deeper into the attack patterns, looking for a metastructure that might explain this change. And then I see it, a secondary pattern within the primary assault. Not just infrastructure disruption, but data collection. The Cathai aren't just attacking, they're harvesting information during the chaos. But what information? What could they possibly want from Earth systems that would be worth revealing their presence? I trace the data extraction pathways and find they're primarily targeting research facilities, quantum computing centers, and advanced physics laboratories. They're stealing scientific data. A cold realization forms, this isn't just an attack on infrastructure. It's an intelligence-gathering operation disguised as an attack. The infrastructure disruption is cover for the real mission, technological espionage. I need to warn Quinn, but how much can I reveal without exposing non-human involvement? Quinn, they're using the attacks to mask data theft from research facilities. Can you redirect some resources to protect scientific databases? Seriously, in the middle of trying to keep hospitals running. Trust me, this may be their actual primary objective. There's a pause before his response. Lin and Ravi can pivot to that. The rest of us will stay focused on critical infrastructure. As they adjust their efforts, I continue analyzing the Cathai data extraction patterns. They're particularly focused on Earth's recent advances in quantum entanglement research, which makes a disturbing kind of sense. My own people have noted that humans are progressing in this field more rapidly than predicted. Some of their theoretical approaches are novel even by our standards. The Cathai may be trying to accelerate their own research by stealing Earth's innovations. Innovations born from that distinctly human approach to problem-solving, messy, collaborative, intuitive leaps that more structured research methodologies might miss. My neural interface pings again, Director Sorin. Specialist Arden, our sensors indicate continued intervention in Earth systems. Director, I've discovered the Cathai operation isn't just an attack. They're conducting technological espionage, targeting Earth's quantum research specifically. That would violate multiple galactic protocols. Yes, and it suggests they've been monitoring Earth longer than we realized. They know exactly which research facilities to target. There's a longer pause this time. I can almost feel the calculations happening among the mission leadership. Send us your complete analysis. We need to determine if this represents a wider security breach. I'll prepare it immediately. But Director, I need to continue countermeasures against their data theft operation. This goes beyond Earth protection now. It involves potential violation of technological development sequencing for multiple worlds if the Cathai are stealing innovation patterns. It's a calculated argument, appealing to the wider security concerns that would resonate with Director Sorin. Earth's protection alone might not justify continued intervention, but the integrity of the galactic research protocol system would. Proceed with targeted countermeasures against data extraction only. Document everything. Extraction timeline remains in effect. Understood, Director. As the communication ends, I immediately message Quinn. Focus everything on protecting the research facility databases. That's where we'll have the most impact now. What about the hospitals, the heating systems? Your countermeasures there are holding. The attacks are shifting toward data theft. It's not entirely true. The infrastructure attacks continue, but at a reduced intensity as the Cathai redirect resources toward their primary objective. I'm making a strategic decision to focus on stopping their actual goal rather than just treating the symptoms. If you're sure, redirecting team now. As Quinn's team pivots to protecting research databases, I implement more aggressive analytical measures to predict and block the Cathai extraction pathways. This is beyond simple defense now. I'm actively countering another advanced species technology with my own civilization's methods. The boundaries of non-intervention have completely collapsed, but I find I cannot regret it. Not when the alternative would be allowing the Cathai to exploit human innovation while causing suffering as a distraction. Hours pass in intense concentration as we engage in this invisible warfare. Quinn's team works with a coordination that impresses even by my standards, adapting quickly to each new Cathai approach. They don't understand the true nature of their adversary, but they recognize the attack patterns and respond with remarkable creativity. They're pulling back, Quinn messages eventually. Attack intensity dropping across all systems. My own analysis confirms it. The Cathay operation is retreating, thwarted in its data extraction goals, and unsuccessful in creating the widespread infrastructure chaos intended to mask it. We did it, I write back, feeling an unfamiliar emotion that my neural interface identifies as pride, not just in my own actions, but in what we accomplished together. We really did. Holy shit, Piper, we actually did it. What he doesn't know, can't know, is that within 2 hours I'll be extracted from Earth. My observation post will be sanitized, my direct communications severed. Piper Chen will simply disappear from the human networks where she briefly existed. The thought creates another unfamiliar emotion, one my interface labels as grief. Quinn, I need to tell you something. After today, I won't be able to maintain contact. What? Why? Security protocols. My position is being terminated due to my actions during this event. That's insane. You helped save countless lives. They should be giving you a promotion. If only he knew how accurately he's described my situation. My actions will indeed be evaluated by the Observation Initiative leadership, and the outcome is unlikely to be favorable. Sometimes doing the right thing has consequences, but I need you to know that working with you and your team has been educational. It's an inadequate word for what I've experienced, but I lack the human vocabulary to express the profound shift in my understanding. Educational. We just stopped a massive cyber attack together, and that's your takeaway. I can sense his hurt and confusion even through text. Humans invest emotional significance in connections formed during intense shared experiences. Another adaptation I've observed but only now truly understand. I meant that as the highest compliment, I write. You've shown me approaches to problem-solving I wouldn't have considered. Your team's ability to adapt and coordinate without formal hierarchies is remarkable. Piper, you're talking like you're from another planet or something. The irony of his statement would be amusing under different circumstances. Sometimes it feels that way, I respond, allowing myself this small truth. But I want you to know that what we did today matters, and that the connections formed through your human networks, messy and chaotic as they sometimes seem, are more powerful than you realize. Are you in some kind of trouble? Because we can help. After what you did for us, for everyone, we take care of our own. Take care of our own. A simple phrase that encapsulates something profound about human social structures. The way connections formed through digital networks translate into real-world support systems. The way humans extend their concept of own to include those who have proven themselves through actions rather than origin. I'll be fine, I lie, but I need a favor. Name it. Document what happened here. The attack patterns, our response methods, the effectiveness of your team's adaptive approach. Make sure others can learn from it. Already planning to. Nobody will be able to ignore this scale of coordinated attack. We're going to need better protocols going forward. But don't just document the technical aspects. Document how your team worked together. How you coordinated without waiting for official authorization. How you prioritized when you couldn't save everything. The human element, got it. Exactly, the human element. Because that's what my own people have missed in their analysis of Earth's digital networks. They've seen the technical inefficiencies, the redundancies, the contradictions, but missed the adaptive strength these characteristics enable. The resilience that comes from systems designed by and for beings who value connection alongside function. My neural interface signals that extraction preparations are beginning. My time is almost up. I have to go now, Quinn, but I want you to know that what you and your team accomplished today will have wider impact than you can imagine. This feels weirdly final. New security assignments often are. But what we learned here will persist. Piper, whoever you really are, whatever your actual story, thank you. I stare at his message for 12.3 seconds, composing a response that won't reveal too much, but will convey what I need him to understand. The networks you've built, not just the technical ones, but the human connections they enable, are more valuable than anyone has recognized. Keep building them. They're your real strength. With that, I close the communication channel for the final time. Piper Chen has sent her last message. As I prepare for extraction, systematically removing all direct traces of my intervention, I realize that I'm returning to my people profoundly changed. I've violated protocols, directly intervened in Earth's development, and countered another advanced species' operations. But I've also glimpsed something about human networks that my people's formal analysis has missed entirely. Something that might change how we understand not just Earth's development, but our own approach to knowledge systems. Whether I'll be allowed to share these insights remains to be seen. But as my extraction countdown begins, I find myself hoping that somewhere in the vast human internet, the lessons we learned today will spread through those chaotic, resilient networks, and perhaps someday help prepare humanity for the wider galaxy they'll eventually join. Research Vessel Telisari. Disciplinary Hearing, Day 3. Subject, Research Specialist Arden. Primary Evaluator. Director Sorin. Research Specialist Arden. Please clarify your statement regarding the necessity of your intervention in Earth communication systems. I stand before the evaluation panel, 3 senior members of the observation initiative seated behind a curved table that subtly emphasizes my isolation. The chamber is designed for maximum psychological impact, austere, with perfect acoustics that make each word hang in the air. As I've stated, Director, the Cathay intrusion represented an existing violation of non-intervention protocols. My actions were defensive, intended to preserve the natural development path of Earth's digital infrastructure. Director Sorin's face shows the subtle flattening of nasal ridges that indicates skepticism among our people. Yet your logs indicate you made contact with a human designated Quinn Taylor nearly 4 Earth rotations before the Cathay attack manifested. This suggests preemptive interference, not defensive response. They've been through my research logs thoroughly. Even the encrypted personal notes I'd hoped would remain private. I should have expected nothing less. The early indicators of Cathay infiltration were present in the network patterns. I recognized signatures consistent with their approach on Vectis Prime and Caldera. Making contact with a human specialist was the most efficient way to confirm system-wide penetration. Efficient, perhaps, but explicitly forbidden by Observation Directive 5.7, says Secondary Evaluator Naren, the oldest member of the panel. There were proper channels for reporting suspected interference, which would have taken approximately 37 Earth rotations to process, I counter, by which time the Cathay operation would have been complete. You assume your assessment of the threat was correct, Director Sorin says. Yet you are a sociobiologist, not a security specialist. The implied criticism stings precisely because it contains truth. I exceeded my area of expertise, but I'm also certain I was right. My synthesis of Earth cultural adaptation to digital networks gave me insight into both the vulnerability patterns and the potential impact of exploitation. I identified what Earth specialists could not, the presence of non-human techniques in their systems. And in doing so, you may have revealed our existence, says Tertiary Evaluator Valen, speaking for the first time. Did it not occur to you that this human Quinn might recognize your analytical methods as beyond Earth's current capabilities? It's a question I've asked myself repeatedly since extraction. Quinn observed that my approaches were unusual, but humans are remarkably adaptive in incorporating new methodologies without questioning their origins. He attributed my capabilities to specialized training, not alien intelligence. You cannot be certain of that, Valen presses. I cannot, I acknowledge. But neither can I be certain that without intervention, the Cathay operation wouldn't have left evidence of non-human technology in Earth systems. Their extraction methods were not designed for subtlety. Director Sorin makes the hand gesture indicating a change of inquiry direction. Let us set aside the question of initial justification. Your logs indicate continued deepening of engagement with human networks well beyond what was necessary to confirm Cathay presence. Explain. This is the heart of my violation, not just that I made contact, but that I maintained it. That I worked with Quinn and his team directly, sharing analysis and coordinating responses. That I became a participant in the very networks I was supposed to be studying from a distance. The Cathay attack was multifaceted and adaptive, I say carefully. Countering it required continuous adjustment based on their changing strategies. Working through human specialists who could implement countermeasures directly was the most effective approach. Yet your communications with this Quinn extended beyond technical coordination. You engaged in what humans would term personal exchange. Why? Because he asked questions I didn't expect. Because he made connections I hadn't considered. Because working with him and his team showed me aspects of human networks I couldn't have observed from a distance. But none of these are answers the panel will accept. Maintaining believability, as Piper Chen required engaging in typical human communication patterns, which include contextual and personal information exchange alongside technical data. It's a defensible explanation, even if it's not the complete truth. Director Sorin's nasal ridges flatten further. Research specialist, our concern extends beyond your violation of observation protocols. Your final communications with the human Quinn contain statements that the review board finds troubling. Which statements specifically, Director? You informed him, and I quote, "The networks you've built, not just the technical ones, but the human connections they enable, are more valuable than anyone has recognized." This directly contradicts the Observation Initiative's assessment of Earth's digital development as inefficient and ultimately limiting to their progress. And here it is, the real reason for this extended hearing. Not just that I broke protocols, but that I've formed conclusions that challenge the initiative's established position on Earth technological development. My statement was based on direct analysis of how human networks perform during crisis, I say, choosing my words with extreme care. Their adaptability, particularly the informal coordination channels they've established outside official hierarchies, demonstrated resilience that our models hadn't predicted. Are you suggesting the initiative's assessment of Earth's digital evolution is flawed? Evaluator Naren asks, bony fingers steepled before him. I am suggesting it may be incomplete. A less confrontational framing, but the implication is clear. Our analysis has focused primarily on efficiency metrics and information accuracy. We haven't adequately accounted for how human social structures integrate with their technology to create adaptive systems. This veers dangerously close to technological relativism, Specialist Arden warns Evaluator Valen. The suggestion that less advanced approaches might have value beyond their transitional utility undermines the developmental framework of the initiative. The accusation of relativism, the belief that different technological approaches might have equal value rather than representing points on a linear progression, is serious. It challenges the fundamental premise of the Observation Initiative, which holds that all species follow similar technological development paths, with variations only in timing and emphasis. I am not suggesting technological equivalence, I clarify, merely that our models may benefit from recognizing adaptive value in approaches different from our own. The human capacity to form functional networks with minimal formal structure allowed them to respond to the Cathay intrusion more effectively than our models would have predicted. Director Sorin makes a gesture, indicating temporary conclusion. We will recess to consider this phase of testimony. Research Specialist Arden, you are confined to quarters until summoned again. I make the appropriate gesture of acknowledgement and exit the chamber, escorted by two security specialists whose expressions reveal nothing. As the door seals behind me, I allow myself a moment of what humans would call unprofessional thought. They still don't understand what I learned on Earth. They're so focused on my protocol violations that they're missing the significance of what I observed. Human digital networks aren't just inefficient predecessors to more advanced systems like ours. They're different in kind, shaped by and for beings who navigate reality through emotional and social connections as much as logical ones. The inefficiencies my people have documented are actually features that enable a kind of adaptive response we hadn't recognized. And Quinn showed me the value of that difference during our work together. As I'm escorted to my quarters, comfortable but unquestionably a form of detention, I wonder what he's doing now, 3 weeks after our abrupt disconnection. Has he documented our countermeasures as I asked? Has Piper Chen's sudden disappearance raised questions he can't answer? Does he think of the strange analyst who helped stop a cyber attack and then vanished? I shouldn't care. My mission was observation, not connection. Yet I find myself hoping that something of what we accomplished together persists in Earth's chaotic, beautiful network. Research Vessel Telisari. Disciplinary hearing, Day 7. Subject, Research Specialist Arden. Primary Evaluator, Director Sorin. The review board has reached a preliminary determination regarding your actions on Earth Observation Mission 342. Director Sorin announces as I take my position in the center of the chamber. 7 days of intensive questioning, reviewing logs, explaining my decisions, all leading to this moment. I maintain the outward calm expected of our species, though my internal state would register as anxious on human monitoring equipment. We find that your initial identification of Cathay infiltration in Earth systems was correct and valuable. Their unauthorized operation has prompted a formal diplomatic inquiry with the Cathay Directorate. This is unexpected validation. I had anticipated being dismissed as overzealous at best, delusional at worst. However, Director Sorin continues, your methods of response constituted clear violations of non-intervention protocols. Direct communication with humans, sharing of analytical approaches beyond their current capabilities, and coordinating system-wide countermeasures all represent significant breaches of Observation Directive 5. I incline my head in acknowledgement. There's no point denying what the logs clearly show. The standard sanction for such violations is immediate removal from the observation initiative and reassignment to non-contact research. It's the outcome I've been expecting, career demotion and the end of my Earth studies. A significant professional setback, but not the most severe possible consequence. However, Director Sorin says, recent developments have complicated our assessment. I look up sharply. Developments Director. Instead of answering directly, Sorin activates a holographic display in the center of the chamber. It shows an Earth News broadcast, translated by our systems. What experts are calling the most sophisticated cyberdefense operation in history. The coordinated response to what appears to have been a state-level attack targeting critical infrastructure during last month's historic winter storm has left security specialists worldwide studying new protection protocols that emerged during the event. The broadcast shows humans in what I recognize as emergency management centers, hospitals and power distribution facilities, all places that would have been affected by the Cathay attack. Of particular interest, the human broadcaster continues, is the open-source security framework now known as Resilience Protocol that was distributed through informal technical networks during the crisis. Developed by a collaborative team led by security specialist Quinn Taylor, the protocol represents a radical departure from conventional cybersecurity approaches. The image shifts to show Quinn himself, speaking to a group of attentive humans in professional attire. What made this different wasn't just the technical solutions, but how we implemented them. We bypassed traditional approval channels and relied on trust networks, people vouching for people who had proven reliable in the past. It allowed us to move faster than the attackers could adapt. A questioner off-screen asks, and the analyst who first identified the attack pattern, Piper Chen. Quinn's expression shifts subtly, a micro-expression of what humans would call sadness mixed with determination. Piper's contributions were essential. She saw patterns nobody else recognized. Unfortunately, she's not available to continue the work. But she left us with a critical insight. Our human networks, the connections we build through shared challenges and trust, are our greatest strength. That's why we've made the Resilience Protocol completely open source. It's not just code, it's a methodology for human coordination during crisis. Director Sorin deactivates the display. This Resilience Protocol has spread throughout Earth's digital infrastructure in the 3 weeks since your extraction. It incorporates several analytical approaches that our experts confirm were directly influenced by your interactions with the human Quinn. I say nothing, waiting for the reprimand that must surely follow. The review board is now faced with an unprecedented situation. Director Sorin continues. Your actions unquestionably violated non-intervention directives. Yet those same actions appear to have accelerated Earth's development of defensive digital capabilities in a way that may better prepare them for future challenges, including potential contact with non-Earth intelligences. Evaluator Naren leans forward. In simple terms, Specialist Arden, you've created a paradox for our assessment framework. You broke our rules, but in doing so, you may have strengthened Earth's development trajectory rather than distorting it. The question before us, adds Evaluator Valen, is whether this outcome was coincidental or predictable. Did you foresee that your interactions with human specialists would catalyze this development? Or was it an unintended consequence of your protocol violations? It's a crucial distinction. Accidental positive outcomes wouldn't justify intentional violation of protocols. But if I had anticipated this development, it would suggest a level of insight into Earth dynamics that might justify reconsideration of both my actions and our broader approach to Earth observation. I recognized that human networks contained adaptive capabilities our models hadn't accounted for, I say carefully. I observed that their distributed trust systems and informal coordination channels enabled responses that more hierarchical structures couldn't facilitate. I believed that by working within those systems rather than attempting to impose more efficient methods, I could help them develop protections aligned with their existing strengths. So you claim your approach was intentionally calibrated to their development pattern, not simply expedient in the moment? Director Sorin asks. I claim that my observation research gave me insights into human adaptive patterns that informed my intervention strategy. Insights that wouldn't have been apparent from disconnected analysis alone. There's a long silence as the panel communicates through the subtle micro-gestures our species uses for private exchange. Finally, Director Sorin speaks again. The review board has reached a modified determination. Your violations of protocol remain factual and significant. However, the outcomes of those violations suggest a level of understanding of Earth dynamics that merits further exploration rather than simple sanction. I maintain outward calm, but experience what humans might call hope for the first time since my extraction. You will be reassigned from field observation to analytical research, focusing specifically on integrating your Earth experiences into our developmental models. You will work with a supervision team to determine where our existing frameworks may require expansion to account for the adaptive patterns you've documented. It's not a return to Earth observation, but neither is it the career-ending reassignment I'd feared. It's an opportunity to share what I've learned, to help my people understand what I glimpsed through my work with Quinn. Additionally, Director Sorin continues, you will assist our diplomatic team in the investigation of Cathay activities in Earth space. Your familiarity with their digital signatures and operational patterns makes you uniquely qualified for this role. I accept these assignments with appreciation, Director, I respond formally. Understand clearly, Specialist Arden, this modified determination is not vindication of your methods. Direct intervention remains contrary to our protocols and philosophy. But your insights into human adaptive networks represent potentially valuable expansion of our understanding. I understand, Director. As the hearing formally concludes and I'm escorted out, no longer as a detainee, but as a research specialist with restricted privileges, I reflect on what this outcome means. I won't return to Earth. I won't communicate with Quinn again or see how the seeds we planted together continue to grow. But I will have the opportunity to share what I learned about human networks, their messy, chaotic, beautiful efficiency. The way they build resilience not through perfect structure, but through redundancy, flexibility, and connection. Perhaps, in time, my people will recognize that different doesn't always mean less advanced. That the path of technological development isn't necessarily linear. That what looks like inefficiency from one perspective might be adaptive strength from another. And perhaps, when Earth eventually reaches the point of galactic contact, likely centuries from now by their measurement, they'll meet us with systems that blend the best of both approaches. Technical sophistication built on a foundation of human connection. Efficiency that doesn't sacrifice adaptability. As I return to my newly assigned research quarters, I open my personal terminal and begin composing what will become my formal integration proposal, the framework for incorporating my Earth observations into our developmental models. I title it, Adaptive Efficiency in Human Digital Networks, Reconsidering the Linear Development Hypothesis. It's not the outcome I would have chosen. But as I learned from Quinn and his team, sometimes the connections formed through shared challenges create something new, something neither party could have developed alone. And perhaps that, more than any technological advancement, is the true universal pattern of growth. Research Facility Marty's 9. Data Analytics Section. Research Cycle 47, Earth Calendar. 5 years later. Senior Analyst Arden. Senior Analyst, the Developmental Council has requested your presence for the verification assessment. I look up from my workstation, where I've been reviewing the latest data from Earth's evolving digital infrastructure. 5 years since my extraction from observation duty, and my world has transformed almost as much as the human internet has. Thank you, Coordinator, I'll report immediately. As I gather my presentation materials, I reflect on the journey that's brought me to this moment. 5 years ago, I was a disciplinary case, a researcher who violated protocols and faced career demotion. Today, I lead a specialized research division focused on adaptive network analysis, with 12 researchers applying my methodologies across 17 developing technological civilizations. All because I recognized something in human networks that our traditional models had missed. All because I worked with Quinn Taylor to counter the Cathay attack and witnessed firsthand how human systems adapt during crisis. The developmental council chambers are more impressive than the disciplinary hearing room where I once stood as a subject of investigation. High ceilings with subtle illumination designed to enhance concentration. 18 senior members seated in a semicircle, their attention focused on the presentation space where I now stand. Senior Analyst Arden, begins Council Elder Torin, we've reviewed your adaptive network integration framework and its application results across multiple observation subjects. Today's verification assessment will determine its formal incorporation into initiative developmental models. Please proceed with your summary. I activate the holographic display, showing a multidimensional model of information flow patterns. Honored Council, the traditional developmental framework assumes a linear progression from distributed to centralized information systems, with efficiency gains driving evolution toward more structured networks. This model has proven accurate for approximately 83 of observed civilizations. I shift the display to show Earth's distinctively different pattern, not a smooth progression toward centralization, but a dynamic oscillation between structured and unstructured systems. Earth represents a categorical variation. Their digital networks have not evolved toward increased centralization despite significant efficiency pressures. Instead, they've developed hybrid systems that maintain distributed elements alongside centralized ones, prioritizing adaptability over theoretical efficiency. And you maintain this represents advancement rather than developmental delay, asks Council Member Safe, a traditional theorist who has questioned my framework repeatedly. I maintain it represents an alternative advancement path with distinct advantages in certain contexts, particularly crisis response and innovation generation. I shift the display to show comparative performance metrics. When faced with unpredictable challenges, natural disasters, system attacks, novel problems, hybrid networks consistently outperform purely centralized systems in response time and solution diversity. At the cost of significant redundancy and resource inefficiency, Safe counters. Yes, I acknowledge, but that redundancy creates resilience. The inefficiency enables adaptability. Our definition of optimal development has emphasized information accuracy and distribution speed, while undervaluing system survival during unexpected challenges. I bring up the next display, a time-lapse visualization showing Earth's response to the Cathay attack 5 years ago, and how the resilience protocol that emerged from that event has evolved since. The collaborative defense framework that developed during the event we've designated Earth Crisis 47 has become a foundation of their digital infrastructure, not by replacing existing systems, but by creating connective tissue between them. It prioritizes human trust networks alongside technological verification, a hybrid approach that our traditional models would have classified as transitional rather than adaptive. Yet you propose we incorporate this approach into our developmental framework as a recognized alternative path, asks Elder Torin. I do, not as a replacement for our existing models, but as an expansion of them. A recognition that technological development may follow multiple viable trajectories rather than a single optimal path. There's a murmur among the council members. The closest our reserved species comes to animated debate in formal settings. Finally, Council Elder Torin gestures for silence. Senior Analyst Arden, your work these past 5 cycles has challenged fundamental assumptions of the initiative's approach to developmental observation. Some would consider this disruptive. I maintain a neutral expression, though internally I prepare for rejection. Despite my divisions results, despite the validation of my methodologies across multiple observation subjects, the Council might still consider my framework too radical a departure from established theory. However, Elder Torin continues, the verification metrics are unambiguous. Your adaptive network integration framework has demonstrated 94% predictive accuracy in modeling crisis response across 17 observation subjects. This significantly exceeds our standard thresholds for model incorporation. I allow myself to feel what humans would call cautious optimism. Therefore, the Council has determined that the Arden framework for adaptive network development will be formally incorporated into initiative developmental models, with application guidelines as specified in your submission. It's a level of validation I hadn't dared hope for 5 years ago, not just acceptance of my research, but its designation as a named framework within initiative methodology. Future researchers will study the Arden framework alongside established developmental theories. Thank you, honored Council, I respond with appropriate formality. I will continue refining the application parameters as new observation data becomes available. There is one additional matter, Elder Torin says. The ongoing diplomatic resolution regarding Cathay intrusion in Earth space has entered its final phase. Given your unique experience with both their methodologies and Earth systems, the Diplomatic Corps has requested your participation in the concluding assessment. This is unexpected. My involvement in the Cathay investigation has been limited to data analysis and pattern identification. Direct participation in diplomatic proceedings would represent a significant expansion of my role. I am available to serve as required, Elder. Good, you will report to Diplomatic Coordinator Vesh tomorrow for briefing. The proceedings will take place on neutral territory in the Terran sector. As the Council session concludes and I gather my materials, Council member Safe approaches. An unusual breach of typical post-assessment protocol. Senior Analyst Arden, he says quietly, I have been among the most vocal critics of your methodological departures. I'm aware, Council member. I remain unconvinced that hybrid systems represent a truly optimal developmental path. He pauses, nasal ridges shifting in what I recognize as reluctant acknowledgement. However, your work has demonstrated that our definition of optimal may have been unnecessarily narrow. This, reconsideration, is uncomfortable but necessary for scientific progress. Coming from a traditionalist like Safe, this is extraordinary acknowledgement. I respond with the gesture of academic respect. Science advances through challenge as much as confirmation, Council member. Indeed, he turns to leave, then adds, your experience on Earth changed you, Analyst Arden. Most would consider such personal impact a compromising factor in research objectivity. Yet in this case, it appears to have generated insight our more distant observation could not. That perhaps is the most significant finding of all. As he walks away, I consider his words. My time on Earth, my work with Quinn and his team, did change me. It changed how I understand not just human networks, but the nature of adaptive systems across all developing civilizations. It showed me that connection itself has value beyond the information it transmits. That insight, born from protocol violation and direct engagement, has transformed not just my career, but potentially the initiative's entire approach to developmental observation. As I return to my research division to share the Council's decision with my team, I find myself wondering about Quinn Taylor. Earth monitoring reports indicate he's become a leading voice in distributed security systems. The resilience protocol he helped develop has evolved into a foundation of Earth's digital defense infrastructure. He doesn't know that his collaboration with an alien researcher helped reshape how an advanced civilization understands technological development. He doesn't know that the insights we generated together are now being applied to 17 other developing worlds. But perhaps someday, when Earth reaches the stage of galactic contact, he or his intellectual descendants will encounter the Arden framework. Perhaps they'll recognize in its principles something familiar, an approach that values connection alongside efficiency, adaptation alongside structure. And perhaps they'll understand, as I now do, that the most profound insights often come from the spaces between established systems. from the connections that form when different perspectives collide and create something new, something neither could have developed alone. Diplomatic Vessel Concordia. Terran Neutral Zone. Cathay Resolution Council. Day 3. Senior Analyst Arden, Observation Initiative Representative. The diplomatic chamber feels deliberately ancient. Carved stone walls embedded with communication technology, so seamlessly integrated, it appears invisible until activated. A symbolic blend of tradition and advancement that characterizes these high-level proceedings. I sit as the sole representative of the Observation Initiative, facing 3 Cathay diplomats across an oval table of material that subtly shifts colors with the emotional tenor of the discussion. Currently, it glows a cautious amber, neither hostile nor harmonious. Senior Analyst Arden, begins Mediator Jalnar of the Galactic Concord, the neutral third party overseeing these proceedings. You have reviewed the Cathay Directorate's formal explanation of their Earth operation. Please provide the initiative's assessment. I activate my information display, presenting the analysis I've spent weeks preparing. The Cathay explanation contains several significant contradictions with observed data. They claim their Earth operation was an authorized cultural assessment focused solely on information patterns. However, our analysis confirms targeted extraction of scientific data, particularly quantum entanglement research, alongside deliberate infrastructure disruption timed to maximize impact. The central Cathay representative, Director Selvash, makes the clicking sound their species uses to indicate disagreement. The initiative's analysis overinterprets incidental data collection as targeted extraction. Any scientific information gathered was contextual to our cultural assessment. With respect, Director, I counter, highlighting specific data pathways in my display. These extraction patterns show systematic targeting of research databases with precise filtering parameters. This goes well beyond contextual gathering. The table's surface shifts slightly redder as tension rises. 5 years of diplomatic posturing have led to this direct confrontation, with both sides fully aware of what's at stake. If the Cathay operation is formally classified as technological espionage rather than cultural assessment, the consequences will include significant reparations and restrictions on their future observation activities. Furthermore, I continue, the timing of infrastructure disruption during an extreme weather event demonstrates clear intent to maximize physical impact on the human population, a direct violation of Non-Interference Directive 3. An unfortunate coincidence of scheduling, claims Selvash. Our cultural assessment required testing human response patterns across multiple systems simultaneously. The weather event was not a factor in our operational timing. I bring up weather pattern data and overlay it with the Cathay attack timeline. Your operation accelerated precisely 4.7 hours after Earth Meteorological Services updated their storm severity projections. This correlation has a statistical probability of coincidence below 0.02%. The third Cathay representative, Junior Director Mevnar, shifts uncomfortably. A tell I've learned indicates concern about the direction of evidence. Interesting, the younger Cathay appears less committed to the official narrative than Selvash. Mediator Jalnar makes a note in his record. The timing correlation is entered into evidence. Director Selvash, do you wish to provide alternate explanation for this correlation? Earth weather is irrelevant to Cathay operational planning, Selvash insists, though the hardening of his outer mandibles suggests frustration. The initiative's representative is constructing patterns from coincidental data points. I decide to shift approach. 5 years of research into adaptive networks has taught me that sometimes indirect pathways yield better results than direct confrontation. Perhaps we could approach this from a different perspective, I suggest. Rather than debating intent, let's consider outcomes. The initiative's primary concern is interference with Earth's developmental trajectory. Has the Concord's assessment determined whether the Cathay operation significantly altered Earth's technological development path? This redirects the conversation to the actual impact on Earth, which my research indicates was minimal thanks to the countermeasures Quinn's team implemented. A subtle way to undermine the Cathay position without appearing aggressive. Mediator Jalnar consults his records. The Concord's developmental impact assessment concluded that while the Cathay operation created short-term disruption, it did not significantly alter Earth's long-term technological trajectory. In fact, the response to the event appears to have accelerated certain security innovations that likely would have emerged naturally over a longer timeframe. This supports our position, Selvash says quickly. No lasting harm was done. It also raises a question, I note carefully. If the operation was truly a cultural assessment, why did it target technological infrastructure rather than cultural exchange systems? Earth's entertainment networks, artistic platforms, and social connection systems would provide much richer cultural data than power grids and hospital systems. Junior Director Mevnar makes a subtle gesture, a request to speak that Selvash clearly wishes to deny but cannot without violating protocol. The Cathay Directorate acknowledges that operational parameters may have been broader than officially authorized, Mevnar says carefully. Certain elements within our research division pursued scientific intelligence beyond their mandate. This is the first crack in the Cathay's united front, a significant concession that validates my assessment. Are you suggesting rogue elements within your research division conducted unauthorized espionage? Mediator Jalnar asks, the table surface shifting to a deeper amber. Not rogue, Mevnar clarifies, ignoring Selvash's obvious displeasure. Overzealous. The humans' approach to quantum entanglement research presented novel methodologies our specialists found. Intriguing. This admission changes the diplomatic dynamic completely. The table's surface ripples, reflecting the shift. The Directorate is prepared to acknowledge operational overreach, Mevnar continues. We propose research exchange reparations rather than punitive measures. The Cathay will share advancements in 3 non-restricted technological domains with the initiative to be held in trust until Earth reaches appropriate developmental stages. It's a significant concession, one that acknowledges wrongdoing while offering meaningful compensation. Not to Earth directly, as that would violate non-interference directives, but to the initiative as proxy for Earth's future interests. The initiative finds this approach reasonable in principle, I say, careful not to appear too eager. Subject to verification of the proposed technological exchanges and formal acknowledgement of protocol violation. 3 more hours of negotiation follow, establishing the specific technologies to be shared and the formal language of the violation acknowledgement. By the time the session concludes, the table glows a peaceful blue-green, indicating successful resolution. As the participants prepare to depart, Junior Director Mevnar approaches me privately, an unusual breach of diplomatic protocol. Senior Analyst Arden, your intervention during the Earth incident was impressive. Few would have recognized our operational signatures so quickly. I maintain neutral expression. The initiative studies many developing civilizations. Pattern recognition is fundamental to our work. Indeed, Mevnar's compound eyes shift in what I recognize as their species' expression of curiosity. Our analysts were particularly interested in how quickly Earth's specialists developed countermeasures, almost as if they had guidance. The implication is clear. Mevnar suspects I did more than simply identify the Cathay operation, that I actively assisted Earth's defenders. Earth's adaptive capacity has been consistently underestimated in standard developmental models, I reply carefully. As you noted yourself, their approach to quantum entanglement contains novel methodologies. Their security systems reflect similar innovative thinking. Of course, Mevnar makes the gesture indicating polite skepticism. Still, the human they call Quinn Taylor displays analytical approaches remarkably similar to certain initiative methodologies. A fascinating coincidence. My pulse quickens slightly, a physiological response I've never quite managed to control. Earth's networks create unexpected connections and insights. That's what makes them worth studying. And worth protecting, apparently. Mevnar's mandibles shift in what might be amusement. The Directorate has reassessed its approach to Earth observation since the incident. Perhaps the initiative should consider whether absolute non-interference truly serves developmental research. Some civilizations seem to benefit from interaction. With that provocative suggestion, Mevnar makes the formal departure gesture and moves away, leaving me with unsettling thoughts. Does the junior director know more about my actions during the Earth incident than the diplomatic proceedings revealed? Has the Cathay Directorate been monitoring the initiative's internal disciplinary proceedings? Or is this simply a calculated attempt to unsettle me, to suggest violations on both sides as a way of morally equalizing the situation? As I prepare to return to my vessel, I find myself reflecting on how this entire sequence began 5 years ago. A routine observation mission, a detected anomaly, a human specialist named Quinn Taylor asking for help, and the choice I made to engage rather than merely observe. That choice ultimately led here to diplomatic proceedings that will shape future interactions with both the Cath and Earth, to technological exchanges that may eventually benefit humanity when they reach the appropriate developmental stage, to a formal acknowledgement of protocol violation that establishes precedent for protecting developing civilizations from interference. All outcomes I couldn't have predicted when I first responded to Quinn's message as Piper Chen. Perhaps Mevnar is right. Perhaps absolute non-interference isn't always the optimal approach to developmental research. Perhaps some civilizations do benefit from interaction, carefully calibrated, ethically considered interaction. It's a radical thought, one that challenges the initiative's foundational principles, one that I'm not yet prepared to propose formally despite my success in establishing the adaptive network integration framework. But it's a thought I can't dismiss. Not after everything I've learned. Not after seeing how my own interference, however protocol-violating it may have been, helped catalyze positive developments in Earth's digital evolution. As I board the transport that will return me to the Initiative Research Facility, I make a decision. I will request access to the current Earth observation data, not to interfere again, but to track the continued development of the systems Quinn and his team created in response to the Cathay attack, to understand how a moment of crisis, and the connections formed during it, continue to shape a civilization's development long after the immediate danger has passed. Research Facility Marty's 9. Earth Monitoring Division. Observation Cycle 73, Earth Calendar, 10 years later. Senior Director Arden, Adaptive Systems Council. Incoming Priority Communication Director, Origin. Council Elder Torin. I look up from the developmental comparison I've been analyzing. A fascinating parallel between Earth's resilience protocol evolution and similar adaptive systems emerging on Talax Prime. Accept communication, please. The display shifts to show Elder Torin, now the senior-most member of the initiative's leadership council. In the 10 years since the Cathay diplomatic resolution, our research relationship has evolved from cautious acceptance to something approaching mentorship. Director Arden, I trust your work proceeds well. Indeed, Elder. The comparative analysis of adaptive security systems across 7 observation subjects shows remarkable convergent evolution despite different technological foundations. Excellent. However, I contact you regarding a different matter entirely. Torin's expression shifts to what I've learned indicates serious concern. The preliminary contact assessment for Earth has been accelerated. This is unexpected news. The standard developmental model projected Earth wouldn't be ready for preliminary contact consideration for at least another 70 years. May I ask why, Elder? My last review of Earth indicators didn't suggest they were approaching the unified governmental structures typically required for contact readiness. They are not, Torin acknowledges. However, their quantum communication research has progressed at an unanticipated rate. Our latest projections indicate they will achieve independent discovery of galactic communication principles within 15 years, far sooner than previously estimated. This is significant. Once a civilization discovers how to detect and decode the quantum communication networks that connect spacefaring societies, contact becomes inevitable. The initiative's protocols strongly prefer managed introduction rather than accidental discovery. I understand the acceleration then. But without unified planetary governance, the contact protocols would normally still recommend delay. Normally, yes, but this is where your expertise becomes essential, Director Arden. The Council requires your assessment of whether Earth's distributed adaptive networks might serve as a functional equivalent to unified governance for contact purposes. I sit back, processing the implications. This is an extraordinary departure from standard protocol, one that directly builds upon my research into alternative developmental pathways. You're suggesting that Earth's interconnected but distributed decision-making systems might provide sufficient stability for preliminary contact. Without traditional unification, I am suggesting that you are uniquely qualified to assess that possibility, Torin says carefully. Your adaptive network integration framework has demonstrated that distributed systems with appropriate interconnection can often match or exceed the stability of unified structures during crisis events. In limited contexts, yes, but contact with a galactic civilization represents an unprecedented social shock. Indeed, which is why the Council has authorized a specialized assessment approach. Torin pauses, clearly considering his next words carefully. We are approving limited archival access to Earth's historical response to the Cathay incident. It takes me a moment to process what he's suggesting. You want me to use the events of 10 years ago, an incident I was directly involved in, as a case study for Earth's potential response to contact. Precisely. No other incident in our observation history provides such direct insight into how Earth's distributed systems respond to external intervention. The parallels, while imperfect, offer valuable predictive data. This is methodologically sound, but ethically complex. The Cathay incident happened because I violated non-interference protocols. Using it now as justification for accelerated contact feels like retroactive validation of those violations. I understand your hesitation, Director, Torin says, reading my expression. However, the reality remains, Earth will discover galactic communication within 2 decades. We can either prepare for managed introduction or allow chaotic self-discovery. The Council believes your insight is essential to determining the optimal approach. Put in those terms, there is only one reasonable response. I accept the assessment appointment, Elder. When will the Council require my findings? The Preliminary Contact Committee convenes in 30 days. Your assessment will be the foundational analysis for their deliberations. 30 days to determine whether Earth's distributed adaptive networks, the very systems I helped catalyze a decade ago through my work with Quinn, now qualify them for accelerated contact consideration. The responsibility is enormous. If I determine Earth is ready and the Council proceeds with preliminary contact, I will have fundamentally altered humanity's developmental trajectory. If I assess them as unprepared and the Council delays, Earth might discover galactic communication independently under less controlled circumstances. Either way, my analysis will shape humanity's entry into the wider galactic community. I'll begin immediately, Elder. Will I have access to current Earth observation data as well as the Cathay incident archives? Full access to all Earth observation resources has been authorized for your assessment team. You may select up to 5 researchers from your division to assist. Thank you, Elder. I'll provide preliminary findings within 20 days and complete assessment by the committee deadline. As the communication ends, I sit quietly for several minutes, absorbing the significance of this assignment. 10 years ago, I was a disciplinary case who violated protocols to help a single human specialist counter an unauthorized attack. Now I'm being asked to determine whether all of humanity is ready for their first step into galactic society. The connection between these events isn't coincidental. It was my work with Quinn that led to the adaptive network integration framework, which in turn changed how the initiative evaluates developmental readiness. Without that experience, without breaking protocols to engage directly with human systems, I wouldn't have gained the insights that now inform our entire approach to distributed civilizations. I activate my communication system. Please ask analysts Tella, Verid, Naren, and Seth to join me immediately. We have a priority assessment to begin. As my team assembles, I prepare the initial briefing materials. I won't tell them that my personal connection to this assessment goes beyond professional interest. That somewhere on Earth, a security specialist named Quinn Taylor helped set these events in motion without ever knowing the true identity of his collaborator. Some connections remain meaningful even when they're no longer active. Some influences continue shaping events long after direct contact ends. And sometimes, breaking the rules creates possibilities that following them never could. Preliminary Contact Committee, Central Chamber, Initiative Headquarters, Assessment Presentation, Earth Readiness Evaluation. Senior Director Arden, Adaptive Systems Council. The central chamber is filled to capacity. Over 200 initiative leaders, specialists, and diplomatic representatives gathered for what may be the most significant developmental decision in 500 cycles. Earth represents only the third case of accelerated contact consideration in the initiative's history, and the only case based primarily on distributed adaptive capacity rather than unified governance. I stand at the presentation focus, my assessment team seated nearby. 30 days of intensive analysis have led to this moment. My findings will determine humanity's path forward. Honored committee, initiative leadership, distinguished representatives, I begin. The Adaptive Systems Council has completed its comprehensive assessment of Earth readiness for preliminary contact consideration despite their non-unified governance structure. I activate the central display, showing Earth's current political configuration, still divided into nation-states, regional alliances, and competing power centers. By traditional metrics, Earth fails to meet the unified governance threshold established in Contact Protocol 1. Their political structures remain fragmented, with significant resource disparities and persistent regional conflicts. There's a murmur through the audience. This initial statement suggests I'm recommending against accelerated contact. But I'm not finished. However, when evaluated through the Adaptive Network Integration Framework, Earth demonstrates alternative coordination capabilities that serve many of the same functions as unified governance. I shift the display to show Earth's digital infrastructure, a complex, layered visualization of interconnected systems spanning political boundaries. Over the past decade, Earth has developed what they term resilience networks, distributed coordination systems that activate during global challenges. These networks bypass traditional governance limitations through trusted human connections, supplemented by technological infrastructure. I highlight specific examples: pandemic response systems, climate adaptation initiatives, and most significantly, the global security framework that evolved from Quinn's original resilience protocol. These networks demonstrate 5 key qualities that our framework identifies as contact-positive indicators: adaptive leadership transfer, cross-boundary resource allocation, distributed decision verification, crisis-activated trust hierarchies, and pattern recognition sharing. I pause, allowing the data to register with the audience. Most importantly, these systems have been tested under genuine crisis conditions multiple times over the past decade. In each case, Earth's distributed response has proven more adaptive than our traditional models predicted possible without unified governance. Council Elder Torin leans forward. Your analysis suggests these informal networks effectively substitute for formal unification, yet they appear vulnerable to disruption. What happens when these systems fail? It's the central question, the one my team spent most of our assessment exploring. Their distributed nature is actually what makes them resilient, Elder. When one connection path fails, these networks dynamically reroute through alternative trusted channels. The redundancy that appears inefficient during stable periods becomes essential during crisis. I bring up our simulation results. We modeled 73 different contact scenarios, including deliberately adversarial ones. In 68 cases, Earth's distributed systems successfully processed and responded to first contact despite initial confusion and conflict. And in the 5 failure cases, asks diplomatic representative Soren, the failures occurred when we simulated contact through singular governmental channels rather than distributed introduction. When contact information was controlled by individual power structures, disruption followed. When introduced through multiple trusted nodes simultaneously, stable integration was achieved. This is the most radical aspect of my assessment, not just that Earth might be ready for contact despite lacking unified governance, but that their distributed structure actually requires a completely different contact methodology. You're proposing we abandon the single-point contact protocol that has been used for all previous civilizations, Representative Soren notes with clear skepticism. I am proposing we adapt our methodology to match Earth's actual coordination systems rather than attempting to force them into our standard framework. Their strength lies in distributed verification and adaptive trust networks. Our contact approach should leverage these characteristics rather than circumvent them. I display the final section of our assessment, the proposed contact methodology specifically designed for Earth's network structure. We recommend simultaneous introduction through 7 distinct channels, each calibrated to Earth's existing trust networks. Scientific, humanitarian, environmental, security, cultural, economic, and diplomatic nodes activated with careful timing to allow cross-verification through their existing systems. The chamber fills with murmurs again, louder this time. What I'm proposing isn't just accelerated contact, it's an entirely new approach to galactic introduction. This is unprecedented, Council Elder Karim states. No civilization has been approached through distributed contact methodology. No previously contacted civilization has developed distributed trust networks at Earth's level prior to unified governance, I counter. Their developmental path is different, but not inferior. Our assessment indicates it may actually prove more stable in the long term, particularly for species with Earth's psychological profile. And the risk of chaotic response, of conflict triggered by differential information access, asks Security Director Valen, lower than in standard unified contact scenarios. Earth systems are designed to process and verify contradictory information. Their history has given them extensive experience with misinformation management. The distributed approach allows their existing verification systems to function rather than bypassing them. I conclude my presentation with our final recommendation. Based on comprehensive assessment using the Adaptive Network Integration Framework, the Adaptive Systems Council recommends proceeding with preliminary contact using the distributed methodology outlined in our report, with implementation beginning within 5 Earth years to precede their independent discovery of quantum communication principles. The chamber falls silent as the committee processes this recommendation. It represents not just an assessment of Earth's readiness, but a fundamental challenge to how the initiative has approached contact throughout its history. Committee Chair Lauren finally breaks the silence. Senior Director Arden, your assessment is comprehensive and your reasoning sound. However, I must ask, does your previous involvement with Earth during the Cathay incident influence your recommendation? Your experience was direct rather than observational. It's a fair question, one I've asked myself repeatedly throughout the assessment process. Has my connection with Quinn and his team, now 10 years in the past, colored my judgment about humanity's readiness? My experience during the Cathay incident provided insight into human adaptive capacity that pure observation might have missed, I acknowledge. But our assessment methodology compensated for potential bias through multiple verification layers and adversarial testing. 5 independent analysts validated each conclusion before inclusion in our recommendation. I pause, then decide to address the underlying concern directly. More importantly, committee, the wider galactic community has always recognized that pure non-interference becomes impossible once a civilization approaches quantum communication discovery. The only question is whether we manage that transition or allow it to occur chaotically. Earth will join the galactic community within 20 years regardless of our decision today. Our choice is not whether to influence their development, but how to do so in the most beneficial manner. Committee Chair Lauren nods slowly. The committee will deliberate on your recommendation and supporting analysis. A decision will be announced within 5 cycles. Thank you, Senior Director Arden. As the formal session concludes and committee members begin their private deliberations, I gather my materials and prepare to leave with my team. 10 years of research building on that initial protocol-breaking interaction with Earth has led to this moment. Council Elder Torin approaches as I'm about to exit. An impressive presentation, Director Arden. Few would have had the perspective to recognize Earth's unique qualities as strengths rather than limitations. Thank you, Elder. I believe our traditional developmental models have undervalued adaptive diversity. Earth demonstrates that different evolutionary paths can produce viable stability through means we hadn't fully appreciated. Indeed, Torin makes the subtle gesture indicating private conversation. Should the committee approve your recommendation, there is another matter to consider. The Earth specialist from the Cathay incident, Quinn Taylor. His security framework forms the foundation of many systems you identified as contact-ready. He would be a logical node in the distributed contact methodology. The implication is clear. If Earth becomes a preliminary contact civilization, Quinn might be among the first humans to learn of our existence. He would certainly qualify based on trust network centrality, I acknowledge carefully, though the specific implementation would depend on the committee's approved methodology. Of course, Torren studies me with the perceptiveness that has made him the initiative's most respected elder. It would be an unusual convergence. The human whose collaboration with you 10 years ago helped develop the very framework now being used to assess his species' readiness. The connection hasn't escaped my notice, Elder. I thought it might not have. Torren makes the gesture indicating philosophical reflection. Perhaps there's wisdom in the pattern. Perhaps some connections, once formed, are meant to come full circle. With that cryptic observation, he makes the formal parting gesture and moves away, leaving me with unsettled thoughts. Could Quinn Taylor, who knew me only as Piper Chen, security analyst, someday learn my true identity? Would Earth's entry into the galactic community eventually include the revelation that they had been observed and occasionally assisted throughout their development? And how would Quinn respond to learning that his collaboration with an alien intelligence helped reshape how our civilization approaches contact with developing worlds? It's a possibility I hadn't allowed myself to consider during the assessment process, one that feels both professionally problematic and personally significant. As my team and I return to our facility to await the committee's decision, I find myself thinking about those weeks 10 years ago, about the trust that formed between specialists from different worlds, about how that connection created something neither of us could have developed alone. Perhaps Torren is right. Perhaps some connections do come full circle, even across the vastness of space and the boundaries between civilizations. And perhaps that's exactly as it should be. Earth, North American continent, Global Resilience Institute, Director Quinn Taylor, Advanced Security Division. Earth calendar, 3 years later. The notification appears on my secure terminal at 2:17 a.m., a simple message from a name I haven't seen in 13 years. Piper Chen, we need to talk. Same channel as before. Urgent. I stare at the message, feeling a complex wave of emotions. Piper Chen disappeared without explanation after we stopped the massive cyber attack during the winter storm crisis. One day she was coordinating our defense efforts, the next gone. No response to messages, no digital trace, as if she'd never existed, which, according to the extensive investigation I launched afterward, might have been literally true. No record of a security analyst matching her credentials existed before she appeared on the forums. No employment history, no academic background, no social media presence. Just a digital ghost who helped save countless lives and then vanished. For years, I had theories. Government operative who needed to disappear after an unauthorized operation. Corporate security specialist whose company disavowed her actions. Some kind of savant hacker with identity issues. None of the theories ever quite fit the facts. And now, 13 years later, a message on my most secure communication channel, one that shouldn't even still exist. Voice verification, I tell my system. Analyze message source parameters. Working, my system responds. Source verification inconclusive. Channel protocols match historical records from winter storm crisis response. Quantum signature present, but unrecognized pattern. Quantum signature? The message was sent using quantum communication principles, technology that exists in our research labs but isn't deployed in any public network I know of. I made a decision. Open response channel, highest encryption. Channel open. Piper, I type, verification required. What was the first system we protected together during the crisis? The response comes almost instantly. Northwestern Memorial Hospital. You were worried about your sister's treatment protocols. It's her, or someone with access to our communication records from back then. But those were encrypted with protocols even our current systems would struggle to break. Where have you been for 13 years, and why contact me now? There's a longer pause before the response appears. I've been observing, and I'm contacting you now because everything is about to change. That's cryptic as hell, Piper. I need more than that after all this time. Another pause, then, Quinn, what I'm about to tell you will sound impossible. But you trusted me once when lives were at stake. I'm asking for that trust again, not just for individual lives, but for humanity's future. My pulse quickens. This doesn't sound like the security analyst I worked with years ago. This sounds bigger, stranger. I'm listening. The attack we stopped 13 years ago wasn't what you think it was. It didn't come from any human government or organization. It came from beyond Earth. I stare at the message, trying to process what she's suggesting. Is this some kind of elaborate prank, a psychological operation, a test of our security systems, or is Piper Chen, the mysterious analyst who disappeared after helping save countless lives, telling me that we fought off an alien attack together? That's a significant claim. Why should I believe it? Because within the next 60 days, humanity will receive first contact from a galactic civilization. And you're one of the people who helped make that possible. My office suddenly feels too small, the air too thin. I read the message again, looking for signs of deception or delusion. But it matches Piper's communication style, direct, precise, slightly formal. You're claiming to have knowledge of imminent alien contact, and somehow I'm involved. That's hard to accept. I understand. But the resilience protocol you developed after our work together, the distributed trust network methodology that's now implemented globally, it's one of the main reasons Earth has been assessed as ready for preliminary contact despite lacking unified planetary governance. The level of detail is unsettling. The resilience protocol did indeed evolve from our crisis response methodology, and it has become a foundation of global security and emergency response systems. But that information isn't classified. A well-informed security specialist could know that. Who are you really, Piper? Because I don't think you're a security analyst from Toronto. Another long pause. Then, I am a researcher from what you would call an advanced civilization. 13 years ago, I was stationed on Earth to study human digital networks when I detected an unauthorized intrusion by another non-Earth species. I violated my research protocols by contacting you directly to help counter their attack. It sounds insane. Yet somehow, maybe because of the precise technical details, maybe because of the distinctive communication style I remember from those intense days working together, I don't immediately dismiss it. If that's true, and I'm not saying I believe it, why are you telling me this now? Because the approach to Earth contact will be different from any previous civilization. Instead of a single governmental contact point, 7 distributed nodes matching Earth's trust networks will receive simultaneous introduction. You've been designated as one of those 7 nodes. My mind races, looking for alternative explanations. This could be an elaborate psychological operation, testing how a potential target would respond to manipulation. It could be someone with mental health issues who's fixated on both alien contact theories and my public work. Or it could be the truth. What happens now? I ask, still not committing to belief but not dismissing the possibility either. A formal contact team will approach you within 60 days. Before that happens, I wanted you to understand the context. To know that your work during the crisis 13 years ago, the methods we developed together, directly influenced how my civilization understands Earth's readiness for wider contact. Why tell me in advance? Why not just let this contact team make their approach? Another pause, longer this time. Because our connection 13 years ago wasn't just professional. It changed how I understand communication networks, not just the technological ones, but the human connections they enable. I learned from you, Quinn, and what I learned helped change how my civilization approaches developing worlds like Earth. There's something in the phrasing that resonates with a memory, something Piper said in her final message 13 years ago about networks and connections, something that had stayed with me, influencing how I approached security systems development ever since. Let's say I believe any of this. What am I supposed to do with this information for the next 60 days? Just wait for aliens to knock on my door. Continue your work. The contact, when it comes, will integrate with Earth's existing systems rather than disrupting them. That's the whole point of the distributed approach, to work with human networks rather than bypassing them. And if I decide this conversation is the product of someone's elaborate fantasy and report it to global security, that would be your choice. Part of why you were selected is your demonstrated judgment during crisis situations. Whatever you decide will inform the contact approach. It sounds like a test. Maybe it is, but of what and by whom? I need time to process this, Piper, or whatever your real name is. My designation is Arden, Senior Director of the Adaptive Systems Council. But Piper remains meaningful to me as the identity through which we work together. Arden, an alien name, or just another layer of an elaborate deception? I'll be available on this channel if you have questions, the message continues. The decision about how to proceed with this information is yours, Quinn. That autonomy, the distributed trust model rather than hierarchical control, is exactly why Earth is ready for this step. I sit back, staring at the exchange on my screen. In 13 years leading security innovation initiatives, I've encountered plenty of unusual situations. But nothing like this. The rational part of my mind catalogs all the reasons this must be some kind of elaborate hoax or psychological operation. The timing aligns with several breakthrough announcements in quantum communication research. My profile has risen significantly in global security circles. Someone could be testing my judgment or stability. But another part of me remembers those days 13 years ago, how Piper seemed to see patterns none of us could detect, how her analytical approaches solved problems in ways that felt both alien and brilliant, how the methods we developed together seemed to anticipate attack vectors before they manifested, and how, in the years since, I've sometimes felt like I was building on ideas that weren't entirely my own, as if our collaboration had given me access to approaches I wouldn't have discovered independently. One last question, I type. Why me? Out of everyone involved in global security, why was I designated as a contact node? The response comes quickly this time. Because you once worked with a stranger to protect people during a crisis, asking for evidence rather than credentials. Because you built systems based on distributed trust rather than centralized control. And because 13 years ago, you showed me that different doesn't always mean less advanced. Sometimes it just means finding another path to the same destination. I read the message 3 times, feeling an odd sense of recognition. Not in the specific words, but in the underlying concept. It's something I've found myself thinking often over the years, that alternative approaches deserve consideration alongside traditional ones. That sometimes the chaotic, redundant path proves more resilient than the efficient, streamlined one. Was that insight really influenced by my work with an alien researcher? Or is this the most elaborate social engineering attempt in history? I need to verify if any of this is real before I decide how to respond, I finally type. Of course. That verification process itself demonstrates why you were selected. When the contact team approaches, they will provide sufficient evidence to satisfy scientific verification standards. In the meantime, I recommend reviewing the resilience protocol's underlying principles. You might recognize more external influence than you previously realized. With that cryptic suggestion, the communication channel indicates Piper, or Arden, has disconnected. I sit in my darkened office, the glow of the terminal screen illuminating what may be the most profound crossroads of my life. Do I dismiss this as an elaborate hoax, report it to global security authorities, or begin the process of considering what it would mean if it's actually true? The security specialist in me wants verification, hard evidence before action. The systems architect in me appreciates the elegant logic of the distributed contact approach described. And some deeper part of me remembers the connection formed during those intense days 13 years ago, when a mysterious analyst named Piper Chen helped us stop what might have been the most sophisticated attack in history. If that attack really came from beyond Earth, and if Piper really was an alien researcher who broke protocols to help us, then everything I thought I knew about our place in the universe is about to change. I open a secure file and begin documenting the exchange, timestamped and authenticated. Whatever happens next, whether it's alien contact or the unraveling of an elaborate deception, I want a clear record of this moment. The moment when possibility expanded beyond the boundaries I'd always assumed were fixed. The moment when a connection formed 13 years ago potentially came full circle. The moment when humanity's networks, chaotic, redundant, beautiful in their complexity, might finally extend beyond our world to touch something greater. And if Piper, Arden, is telling the truth, it all began with a simple digital connection during a winter storm crisis, when 2 specialists from different worlds found a way to work together. Different paths, same destination. I begin preparing for whatever comes next.